Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Chris and we are going to start this video out with this blue metal container box, whatever you want to call it. It's got some old ephemera in here and it said it used to hold like a little mini torch. But, you know, this is a little outdated for decor, so I am going to do a scuff sand over it and then we will begin. Now I've got the color Purely White from Paint Couture. I believe in past videos I was calling it Simply White, so I do apologize for that. But I am going to cover this piece with 2 coats all around after I remove the metal handle from the top. Now, after I applied a couple of coats, I still couldn't quite get the coverage I was looking for. So do yourself a favor. If you have a piece like this, it's best to go ahead and put that first coat with a spray paint. So I did go in after the coats had dried, I believe overnight, and I went ahead and gave it a couple of coats of Rust-Oleum's 2X in a flat white paint. Now I've got the color Pedal Pusher and then a black chalk paint, and I want a darker blue. I'm going to be using a rub-on transfer that is blue, and it's got a couple different shades of blue, and I wanted the darker blue. So I don't have really anything in the color I'm looking for, so I'm going to try to mix it up. Now, I'm not a mixologist, so I'm just kind of winging this, but I did add way too much black to the blue. So I did not want to just toss this paint. I did go ahead and test it right on the inside surface because that's where I'm going to be applying this paint, is on the inside of our box, but it just wasn't right. Okay, I don't know if you can see it. This is the color blue I ended up with. I ended up adding, you saw me do the prom queen and the black, but I ended up adding some burnt umber, some violet, and then I had to add a lot of this nautical to it just to get this color. So yeah, but that's what I ended up with. I think that's really pretty, and I'm just letting it finish drying and debating on what to do with the top of the lid. This is the French ceramics from Redesign. I got this off of Amazon. If I can find the link, I will list it, but it's been a while since I got it. So, of course, they come up in rolled sheets, which is a little more difficult to work with if you ask me. Now, I'm just going to play around with this sheet for a little bit, just kind of get an idea of what images I want where. So I'm just going to move you a little fast forward. And do not be afraid to cut your transfers in the sections that you need. You can always piece them back together. It is really no big deal. So if you need to cut, then cut. And once I have got that all sorted out, I'm just going to start on the top of the box. Any pieces that I can kind of drape over the sides, I will do so. But you guys may have seen in the past that I had worked with some Redesign transfers that did not transfer very easily. Well, I'm going to tell you, these sheets were amazing. They transferred so well. I was very impressed. So I don't know what's wrong with some of them, but these were perfect. They do supply you with a little wood rub-on transfer stick, but I had this plastic one nearby, which is from IOD, so I'm just going to use that. I'm going to rub these pieces all over, lift up as you rub. That not only allows that piece to come off a little more smooth, it also allows you to see what pieces need a little bit more rubbing. So I'm just going to do this throughout the box. I'm going to take my time and just have fun with it and get a little creative with where these pieces need to go. I'm going to grab DIY's clear liquid patina. I'm going to use that as my sealer, and I am going to go over the entire box, including the paint, because that paint we used, or I used, has a chalk-based paint in it. and it's got a mixture of paints in it. So I just want to make sure it's sealed. You can see what I did to the inside. I think everything came out so pretty. And once I finish this step, it is ready to be displayed for decor and decorated as seen fit. So you guys all have to let me know, how do you think I did on this metal box? All right, I got these canisters. They are wood. They're awesome, but they are a little worn as far as the old paint job, but it's a whole set. A set of 4. These need to be cleaned and sanded. But would you look at these? Are they not amazing? Oh my goodness. I mean, some of them aren't too terribly bad, but yeah, we can definitely make these so much better. So, and look at that. They are joined there. May have to put just a little wood glue here and clamp that down. If you have any loose joints, you can definitely do that. But my clamps are being used right now, so that's gonna have to wait. Okay, so I have a 2-to-1 ratio of in the pickle and pantry door for my paint for the bottom part of the canisters. Let's give it a stir. It's a little thick. Let me start with a small one. I'm just gonna paint one of these on camera and the rest off. So I do have these shellacked. All right, I have shellacked both the bottom and the lids after I sanded them. And now I'm gonna apply this concoction, this beautiful vintagey green that I am loving. And since my mixture was a little on the thicker side than some of the colors, I don't know what's up with that, but I only applied 1 coat around the bottom parts of these boxes, including the bottom. Okay, with the color Creamy, I'm going to paint the lids. And I just mixed up a little because I'm just doing the tops of the lids. And for some reason, this mixture came out a little more runny or watery. So I did end up having to apply about 3 coats to these lids. Now I did not do the underside of the lid, just applied the 3 coats, working it in with a smaller brush. Now, once I've got that on there, I'm just going to take a baby wipe. You can also use a wet towel, and I'm going to clean off any of the paint that got underneath. And when that wasn't working, I would also grab my little sanding sponge and try to sand off some of that paint, because I'm telling you, when this milk paint sets up and dries completely, it's rough to get off. I had to go to a little coarser of a grit sandpaper just to kind of get that off. I spent a little time cleaning the bottoms. So to prevent that, you can always apply some painter's tape to help prevent from getting paint on the underside. And then I'm going to grab a sanding sponge. My sanding sponges are 220 grit, but they are a little softer than some of the other 220 grits that I have, if that makes any sense. So I kind of bounce back and forth between the two. The main thing I want to do is sometimes you'll get little clumps and stuff in the paint, and you want to definitely buff that down. And I also want to give this some aging, bring that wood through, because I don't want these to look brand new. I want them to look on the vintage side, but I want them to look better than where they started. And so I'm going to do this to all 4 lids and all 4 of the bottoms, just smoothing all that paint out and giving it a rustic appearance. Now, with my Cricut machine, I did create some stencils. I just found numbers on the Cricut machine, and then I found some circles and just centered all that up, cut it out on some stencil vinyl, and placed those dead center of all 4 of my canisters. And then with some black chalk paint, I'm just going to stencil those on. Just remember when stenciling, less is more. You want to build those up. Otherwise, you take that risk of these bleeding underneath the stencils. Now, I did not want my paint too dark, so I stopped after one coat. And then I always just pull my stencils off when my paint is still a little wet. And I absolutely love how this turned out. The stencils came out nice and crisp and clean, and I just love it. Now I'm going to go in with some clear wax all along both the bottoms and the tops. I'm just using this clear wax before I use a darker wax. For one, I don't want to change my paint color, and this clear wax is going to help prevent that. I do go ahead and wipe back some of that excess clear wax. And then I'm going to grab Sweet Pickins dark oil wax, and I'm going to give all my pieces a coat of this. And I just use a brush. I just swipe it on with my brush pretty thick, and I'm going to go ahead and wipe that back. I'm just using a shop towel just to wipe it back. And oh my God, these look so good. Sometimes I will come across a piece that has a little bit more resistant on taking the color, so I'll just let that stain sit for a bit while I am doing all my other pieces. And we're just going to work through this, brush it on, let it sit, and then go back and wipe them back. Now for the inside of the boxes, I'm just going to use some of this citrus shield and just go and give it a nice drink along the inside just to bring back some of that wood. I am going to suggest whoever purchases this from me that they are not to put food directly in there. They can just, put the food in there inside of bags or whatever, or use them for a whole other purpose. What do you guys think about the canister makeover? I got this. It was made like a ladder, but these shelves are pretty straight across. And I thought, you know what? Why don't we cut off the bottoms? We're going to make it as a standing shelf. So I'm just going to use my miter saw. And then with my power sander, I'm going to give this piece a good once over. I am using a 120 grit sandpaper and just anywhere that I can reach. It's just that it's a larger piece. It'll be a little easier on my hands. But if you find a piece like this and you don't have a power sander, then by all means, you can definitely do this by hand. It just will take a little bit longer. There are going to be some pieces I can't reach with this that I will have to do by hand. And then I've got this 1/4 inch piece of plywood, and I am going to use this to make a backing for this shelf. So I just pretty much line it up. I do not want it to come down past the back where the legs are because I think that would look a little weird. So I am just going to line it up. I'm going to grab me a pencil and I am just going to trace along where I am going to need to be cutting. Now, normally I would prefer to pull out my table saw, but it's so hot out in this garage today. I just did not want to take the time to pull that out. So I am going to use my miter saw. This miter saw has the reach. I'm not really sure of all the technical terms. So I'm just going to utilize that, flip it around after that first cut, and just continue my cuts. And it's just easy peasy. All right, now once we're back up in the craft room, I can continue with my sanding, just kind of going over all the pieces, any place I might have missed, any place I could not have reached. Now I want to go ahead and attach the backing, so I am going to use some wood glue along the area where that wood is going to be touching. This is just going to help ensure me that the backing is not going to fall off after I sell it. And then I'm just going to place that down, line it up. Now keep in mind this glue is going to make this piece a little slippery until that glue sets up. So what I'm going to do is grab my nail gun and I'm just going to work in each corner first. And like I said, just start in one corner, shoot your nail through there. And then just go to each corner. That way, if that board slips any, you've got more control of lining it up. And then once those four corners are done, I'm just going to go along the edges and shoot some more of these nails in there, just making sure everything is nice and secure. And then I am going to go along the outer edges of this piece. There are just a lot of little holes. So I'm just going to grab some wood filler. I'm going to fill those holes in. It doesn't take much, and it doesn't take too long to set up. Now I did have a couple of areas where my nails kind of shot out the side, so I just trimmed those off, hammered them back as much as I could, and then I'm just going to fill that area as well. Now on the top where I added that backing, I am going to also fill in the lines where it meets up to the top there, just so it has a smooth top. Now after I got all that sanded down, I am going to apply shellac throughout this piece. Now I'm going to be using the color Kent from Sweet Pickins in the Bespoke collection. I also went ahead and taped off the little section with the heart on it. And now I'm going to apply that milk paint all over the sides with the exception of the back. If you're afraid you're going to get paint on the back and you don't want paint on the back, just tape it off with some painter's tape. But I'm just going to apply this paint anywhere that it can be seen, really, with the exception of the very bottom of the legs. I'm also going to paint around the inside of the shelves. And I do like to work in a few sections at a time. That way I can hold the piece in different areas. So in between, I do dry down with my heat gun, just getting all that beautiful crackle to come out of that milk paint. And I do end up applying 2 to 3 coats of this paint. Once I get it all painted, I'm going to go in with 220 grit sandpaper, and I am going to give this piece some distressing and smooth down that paint. I know a lot of the steps are redundant, but they're very important. Now it's time to remove that painter's tape from this piece. I don't know, I just thought this piece in its original wood state would just be very pretty, and you know what? I think I'm really liking it. But I am going to go around, a couple drips of paint got up under that tape, so I'm just going to clean that up with some water. And then I'm just going to take some clear wax. I'm going to seal this piece all in its entirety. And then I want to kind of richen it up a bit, and I'm going to use some black wax. Now, I get a little nervous when I use the black wax, but I did take me a little piece of wood and kind of test it out and decided I am going to love this look. And I'm just going to go over where I've already applied the clear wax. I do this in sections, again, just to make it a little bit easier. And once I've got that black wax on, I'm going to just wipe it off with a soft cloth. And I wipe it back lightly. I don't want all the black wax coming off, but I think it just looks absolutely beautiful. And I'm going to continue this all throughout, and then this piece is complete, and I absolutely love the way it turned out. You guys will have to let me know, what do you think about the ladder turned shelves? All right, everybody, final project. I got some wood blocks. I will put the size up here on the screen of each of these wood blocks because right now I can't think of the dimensions. However, once I have these pieces cut down, I am going to go around, sand them really smooth. Now, I don't know if you guys follow Sparks of Joy, Natalie, but she has been doing these, what she's calling shelf sitters. And I thought, you know what, that is the best way to use up some of this decoupage paper or any transfers. Just cut you down some blocks of wood and put your decoupage paper, put your paint on there, and make little shelf sitters, desk sitters, whatever you would like to call them. And since I am going to be decoupaging on here, I am going to use a white color paint and paint just the tops of both of these pieces. And then I'm just going to cut down my decoupage papers and after I've figured out what images. And fun fact, if you guys don't know this about me, I love cows. I think they're so cute, especially in farmhouse decor. And well, that's what I am going to put on these pieces. I am using the DIY clear liquid patina as my decoupage medium and one of these fan brushes that I get from the DIYstruggle.com. Going to put a nice thin smooth layer right on the top, and I am just going to place this paper right in the center. I did not want to tear it because I love that green on the outer edges, so we're going to do some blending here after a bit. But we want to first make sure we get this paper on nice and smoothly, and then I'm just going to repeat the process for the smaller block. And once that glue is dried, it is safe to go ahead and sand off any of that excess paper. All right, so I'm just going to focus here on the larger one. Like I said, I really like that green. I first grabbed the color Apothecary from DIY Paint and painted it right on those outer edges just to kind of see how it matched up in color. And as you can see, the Apothecary is just a little too light. So since my paint had dried down, I'm just going to add a little bit of water. Then I'm going to grab the color Fancy Farm Girl, and I am going to apply that right on top of that water, just kind of blending it into the paint that's already there. And then I'm going to kind of dry that down, see how that matches up. And then I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to grab that color Fancy Farm Girl and go ahead and apply it onto each side of this block. And then while that's still wet, I'm going to grab the color Farm Fresh and just kind of blend that in with this color, just kind of mixing it in. And I'm just going to do that throughout, and if any of the areas have dried down, I'm just going to spritz a little bit of water on there. And then I really love the way these two colors go together. They really match those edges along that paper, so I am just going to proceed to do this same thing throughout this block. And then once both pieces are complete, I am going to give it a good sanding. I want these to look rustic, so I am definitely going to distress it back, go over the paint, just really working the magic that the sandpaper can do to these pieces. I'm going to seal these in with some DIY's clear liquid patina, and then I'm going to use Best Dang Wax by Dixie Belle and just give these some additional distressing, especially along the edges. Once I get all that on the edges, I'm then going to take some clear wax and seal all of these pieces in. Once sealed in, I just realized I wanted these more aged, so I'm going to add some more of that darker wax and just work it into sections, blending it in, just making this piece look more rustic, more vintage, more worn. And then these pieces will be complete. And If you guys are still here, thank you so much for sticking around and spending your day with me. I truly, truly appreciate you guys for helping me to grow my channel. It means the world to me. And I hope to see you again next week. But before you go, don't forget to let me know which of these 4 projects was your favorite. If you've made it this far and you've not yet hit that subscribe button, please feel free to do so. I would love to have you here every week, helping me grow, growing with me. And with all that being said, you all have a wonderful week, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.